celebrating 9 years of podcast excellence. The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Okay, I'm asking for it. This is episode 688 of the Wrestling is Real podcast, and this might be the most controversial take I've probably ever given on this program at all in almost 10 years of doing the show. Right now, 9.5 years going. And in all this time, you know, I have definitely had my discussions with my fellow podcast brethren, with the IWC, the Internet Wrestling Community, and with all of you out there, my lovable listeners, that have been with me through thick and thin. By the way, IceMay23, I'm going to shout you out because I know you've been catching up with me, and I appreciate you throwing a comment there in the YouTube channel for listening to my recap of Impact Wrestling's Rebellion. If you didn't get a chance to catch that, go ahead and look for it, wrestlingisreal.com. I did put a post there for all of you to check out for yourselves. In the meantime, let me just put to you like this. I'm going to open up tonight's program with 5 indisputable facts that all wrestling fans can agree to disagree. 5 points. I'm going to lay them out. I'm going to lay out my argument, my theory, everything I'm saying about it. Because the bottom line is, whether you like it or you don't like it, wrestling right now, in the format that we have at the moment, is as good as it was in terms of choices, options, in some ways talent-wise, as good as it was in the early 2000s, before the Monday Night Wars ended, and the WWF won vehemently, not only winning, but buying the competition out. They did it. And ECW was still alive. And we have so many options now, and all these companies after the pandemic that have built themselves up, and they have been able to make themselves so prominent. There's such it's such a boatload of programming to watch on a regular basis. It's hard to keep up. When I look at my calendar and I say to myself, okay, Monday night I'm watching Dark Elevation on YouTube, then Dark, and then I have regular Dark on Tuesday with NXT 2.0, and then I got Wednesday with Dynamite. And if I get it, well, MLW Fusion doesn't come out until Thursday, so that's a different thing. So Dynamite on Wednesday. And then Thursday, I'll have MLW Fusion and Impact Wrestling. And Friday, SmackDown, Rampage. If I get time for MLW, I'll catch that. Or I'll catch MLW and NWA Power and NWA USA all on the same weekend. And that's not even including if there's a pay-per-view that weekend. And that's also kind of the fact we haven't had Ring of Honor been given a weekly time slot again. Like, I wasn't watching the show when it was in full reruns for all this time on Sinclair. I'm not watching that. But there is so much right now of wrestling. And so many good brands right now. When we talk about the full gamut of what WWE is doing right now, listen, I'm going to defend them tonight. And you guys are not going to like what I say. But I'm going to defend them, and I kind of been doing a little bit of defense after WrestleMania for a little bit now. You know, it's been 3 weeks or so since WrestleMania. 4 weeks later, I'm still defending them. The WrestleMania hangover, I don't feel so bad this time around. Let me put it like this. I feel like the WrestleMania offseason is off to a good start. Sure, the ratings aren't going to stay up like they were, but I feel really good right now on what they're doing. They're not falling on their laurels. They're not falling back on things. And I don't think they're even so much relying on gimmicks or special guest stars or anything like that. Sure, they're using some gimmickry here and there, but they're going to do that just to kind of keep things, you know, keep the ratings up, first of all, for them. Try to sustain the ratings that they did pick up. And add something that's a little bit more variety to what they're doing. So they're pulling all their tricks out for that. And for the most part, they've actually been doing pretty well. And I think the booking has been better. The creative has been somewhat better, and I'll explain why. So that's the first point I have. But I want to get, before I get to my 5 points, I'm just going to tell you, the wrestling is such a good spot. AEW is delivering some really great content. WWE, I believe, they're stepping themselves up, and they have no choice but to step up because they are lacking a real depth of talent right now, of that main event, indisputable box office marquee talent that they need right now, because they know that their talent right now that has been at the top is aging or they're getting stale. And so they're doing things to try to adjust and maneuver them and make some of these stars look a little bit fresher. And they've done an absolutely great job in that point. I'm going to explain that. Now, in the offseason, you also have AEW that is, they might have cooled off a bit from that amazing last summer, right after Labor Day, when they just had all these debuts coming in left and right. They're not hitting it as much now because there's not that many debuts to make at this point. But they really give us a really solid product. And I defended them last week on the program pretty extensively. Like I had defended the booking agenda of AEW. I think I did a pretty good job of it. And then when it comes to everyone else, Impact Wrestling, if you look at Rebellion this past weekend, they're delivering now. And that's one of my other points. And then when I get to overall, I mean, I'm not even, in my 5 points, I don't even talk about MLW or NWA and what they're delivering right now. Sure, they're not delivering the biggest crowds in the world. Like NWA still, they're behind the pack on trying to build out a big audience right now. I don't know if that's just because their TV shows, they don't want to have a big audience to deal with. But, I mean, they get their shows to Oak Ridge, Tennessee, or Oak Grove, I forget what the name of the city is. They go there. They went to Nashville. They can get some crowds over there. They can get a few hundred people, more than that. They're not going to get 1,000 people right now, but they're getting people, but they're not on a regular TV setup for what they have. For MLW, to go to Gillies or to go to 2300 Arena and fill that up, you have to be pretty good. At least they're all getting certain audiences. NWA, they're only on Fight and YouTube. And they're still pulling some people. And the talent is still pretty credible to me. They're on the lower end, but also they're working on a limited budget. But there's something to be said about NWA and the credibility and just it's the integrity of the National Wrestling Alliance and the heritage it holds and what they really do kind of try to hold that up in distinction across their part. With MLW is different. And I think MLW, at some point could get themselves to another TV provider to go somewhere else after the whole deal with Vice and Tubi and all that going on. Who knows what that lawsuit with WWE is going to go ahead and come out with, what the turnout will be on that. But anyway, there's 5 points I'm going to bring up. And I'm going to bring them all right quickly now. And then I will go one by one and explain. I'm just going to give you 1 to 5. Because if you're not going to listen to the whole show, that's okay. But I'll give you what I'm going to talk about in terms of top 5. Number 1, 5 indisputable facts all wrestling fans can agree to disagree with. And I'll just take out all. I'll just say wrestling fans can agree to disagree. Number 1, WWE is finally booking new talent with the help of veterans as advocates or as opponents. They're also going to add that the veterans are being repackaged or reimagined. That's helpful. And this all sinks into their plan of building out more stadium shows in the future, which they've already announced. Nick Khan made a point to say that they're going to definitely try to expand and go more aggressive on doing stadium shows. They're already doing 8 this year. You know this program has been talking about that for a while now, for months, especially going like the SummerSlam. They planned this, and I said they better have a plan to make sure they can go ahead and fill out those stadiums. They have a plan. They're executing it right now because they can't just rely on part-time talent every time this goes around. They need to build something now, and I think they're doing a few things pretty spot on. I'll give them that. Number 2, NXT 2.0. You're not going to like this line, but I've kind of already referred to this in previous shows. I'm going to say this right now. NXT 2.0 has successfully replaced the black and gold brand with new stars and without Triple H at command. It's all about appeal. That's how they did it. 3 A's that make that brand more appealing. The color, the diversity, and it's some of the tenets of what WWE is trying to become again. Yeah, they care about attractiveness, athleticism, and ambition. So you have some of these stars that were previously in sporting in sports before, and they're picking the best looking in terms of shape, in terms of looks, in terms of everything. Like, they're picking model athletes. They'll look good on a magazine, or they'll look good, in a photo shoot. They'll look good in the ring. They'll figure out the craft, and they have the ambition to become big stars because they see this is another franchise where they can grow and become something big because the path has already been laid out for them. Number 3, AEW is the promotion building the most up-and-coming stars, the newest stars. They are our star builder. They are star makers. MJF, Darby Allin, Sammy Guevara, Wheeler Yuta, Wardlow, Jungle Boy, among others. You can see what they're doing with Jericho Appreciation Society. You're going to see what they're going to do with, just pick. When they talk about the under 30 division that's going on at AEW now, women and men, and what they have, there's a lot to be said about that. Number 4, Impact Wrestling is no longer a promotion to sleep on. I said this on the Rebellion Post show. They're no longer a promotion to sleep on. Absolutely not. Forget the Dixie Carter, Eric Bischoff, Hulk Hogan, Vince Russo eras of previous iterations, of previous generations of TNA. Throw that away. It's part of their history. They're no longer TNA. They've been Impact Wrestling for long enough, and Scott D'Amore, Ed Norholm, Don Callis, and that whole team there of Anthem Entertainment, they have done an amazing job of building that brand. Impact Wrestling now has great integrity. They have amazing talent on that roster. And the booking has gotten better. They really do have a lot of things figured out now. Number 5, the Forbidden Door, is Tony Khan simply restoring what Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling had in the past, which is so important to the detriment of making sure that WWE is on its heels, recognizing their competition from afar. Of course, that's not the same competition. Nick Khan will say that. You're correct. But for wrestling purists, New Japan working with the likes of AEW and using the Ring of Honor brand as well, incorporating that. And Ring of Honor being the crux of being somewhat of a forbidden door that is still being allowed within American promotions to where we're doing right now, where this G1 SuperCard concept back in 2019 is coming back now as Forbidden Door. Taking the United Center, going to, again, another version of All Out or All In, and saying we're going to do this again. We're going to restore New Japan. We're going to give them the super shows again. They've been doing their own shows, but once they go and put AEW talent together and bring that full crossover potential together, it will only apply to international talent or American stars working from those promotions from New Japan from now on. I don't think we're going to have Impact stars as much coming into the brand. We're seeing it a little bit now because, Deonna Purrazzo is going to have to defend her belt because she's Ring of Honor World Champion. That she won it off of Roxy at Final Battle. Interim champions Mercedes Martinez, who won at SuperCard of Honor. Now you're going to combine the interim and the actual earned champion, the original champion, now has to defend on this brand. So we'll see if Deonna or Mercedes are going to now be the undisputed Ring of Honor Women's World Champion. That's huge. That's your 5. We're going to go one by one through all of them tonight. And I really want to make my point. And just know, I don't put this out there to try to create clickbait. I never have. For me, it's about enjoying wrestling and knowing we're in great times right now. The wrestling boom that Jeff Jarrett talked about with Global Force, it wasn't with him, but it is here. We have tremendous outlets of watching wrestling. And we're not even talking about GCW or big time wrestling or, what's going on in other locations. I mean, there's other promotions that are out there we're not even talking about. But there are so many places for stars to expose themselves now than ever before. There's so much talent to be recognized more than ever before. And I think the best part will be is that WWE doesn't want to have that talent. I mean, AEW can go ahead and pick off whatever talent they want. Impact Wrestling can also do the same. Impact or MLW and NWA can do the same thing. There's a lot of great wrestling talent in the professional wrestling sense. No doubt about it. And with WWE deciding to not take those other stars from other promotions and trying to incorporate them and try to take a square peg and put it into a round hole, they're going to stop doing that. There's only going to be certain stars that they feel like can actually make that transition over. Okay? Of the stars that I see right now, especially NXT 2.0, rare exceptions will get a chance to go to that performance center and actually get a chance from a traditional wrestling sense to be able to succeed. Roxanne Perez, or what was Roxy in Ring of Honor and other promotions, she's the one. And the way they're booking her with Toxic Attraction in a main event angle and putting her in that spot, even though she might have lost to Mandy Rose, they gave her a good match. She was positioned very well. I don't care about Wendy Chu being a part of this, but they want to build that star up as well. Roxanne Perez is a star in the making in the women's division. I'm going to say it like this, and you guys can also tell me if I'm wrong too. She's the next AJ Lee. She is. There's just something about her, full of vitality, full of just charisma and just passion. She sells great. She works great. She's only 19 years old. They brought her in the right time. Hell, I even saw where they brought in Ariana Grace, Santino Morella's daughter, at 19 years old. And I'm like, whoa. Anthony Corelli's daughter. She's now in the promotion as well. So there's a couple of stars that might make their way through certain connections in previous generation wrestlers that can still make their way in. There are exceptions that are going to be to the rule for WWE if they can make that work. And I can appreciate that. But there will be certain stars that I think the door will not be open for anymore from WWE because they're going to have that next in line program. When they can build from the ground up and they can build athletes that are ready to go, and they can take this concept and they're going to build these crop of these new athletes as superstars to build for the next generation of wrestlers that are going to be, or superstars that are going to be out there in front of these stadium shows. They're already accustomed to being in stadiums anyway. They worked in football and basketball and wrestling and track and field in front of stadiums. But not so much basketball, but still, these are people that have well-known. They didn't work in bingo halls and rec centers and things like that. These are going to be athletes that already understand the pressure of performing in front of a large crowd. Okay, when I think about the guy that's from, was it Michigan, I think? Who was the guy that was, or Ohio State? And thinking that guy, when he was working out for himself, well, I mean, you think about the fact that what kind of a crowd was he working in front of that was just so huge and massive? Joe Spivak at Northwestern. There we go. That was the guy. Northwestern, you're talking about, you watch on Saturday afternoons at noon, pick a channel like Big Ten Network or ESPN, and if they're playing Ohio State or playing somebody else, they're playing in front of some big, huge crowds. And these are stars that actually did get time to go and work in the ring, and they actually performed. And, they had made a little bit of recognition for themselves as a scholar athlete working in collegiate sports. So it'll be a matter of time before we see all those new prospects pay off eventually, because I think they will. But more importantly, what needs to happen now is we need to really enjoy what all the other wrestling is giving us right now in the meantime. Now, as I said, so when I look at veterans being repackaged or being used as advocates or as opponents or as enhancement opponents, for certain stars. I think they're doing the right thing with the number of stars, the way they're using them. You might not believe me, or you might not agree with me, and that's okay. When I just think about across the board, starting with Raw, so MVP now being transitioned off of Bobby Lashley to Omos. So MVP using that mouthpiece, and Bobby Lashley working now as enhancement talent to get Omos over. Because if Bobby Lashley now, with all that he's been able to do in his career to get himself the chip off his shoulder and become multiple-time WWE champion, he did it. Well, now he's going to do the best thing possible to help get other stars over. So now Bobby Lashley wants to do the job of getting over Omos. This is not an easy task, but Omos is somebody that the company's been focusing on for a while now. And I give them credit for trying. Listen, Omos has not fallen flat on his face yet. He's not Great Khali yet. I don't rule him out already. Because I think the best thing that could have happened, he could have fallen flat on his face. Look at the AJ Styles thing. It was there, and he served the purpose for about a year. But now with MVP, there should be a definite different interest in him going forward. And MVP now gets a new lease in life with Omos. I think it's a good idea. And they're trying to be somewhat creative. I mean, sure, we've seen the arm wrestling contests happen so many times. I thought they did a nice way of, having where Omos was pummeling Lashley with the table. That was pretty good. They're setting things up for WrestleMania Backlash. We're going to get that match, and, you're going to have to do something more than just expect the match to be something. So they're trying to do more to get the match some heat. I think they're doing that right now, and Lashley's coming in now looking like we want to see Lashley get his comeuppance on Omos after all this shit. Damian Priest and Edge, now the faction of Judgment Day. I love it. Edge in this new role, Judge, Jury, Executioner, the more subtle, moody, more to the brood type of Edge, this works. And he's a heel, which is his natural distinct. I like Damian Priest here in this role. I think that whole gimmick is fantastic. It's a good thing for them. Next up, when they have somebody that already is custom made and ready to go into the main event with Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes right now is definitely in the same discussion as Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins, and really up in that upper mid card level. But they continue to keep mentioning the fact that he's going to go after a world title. He's going to go after a belt. That's the plan going on down the line. And Cody Rhodes has been booked pretty well so far in the right way. They get that right. And that's somebody they already had themselves. Now they get him back, and now they're trying to use him as a proper star. And I talked about a couple weeks ago saying that Cody's the next John Cena. I really believe that. I think they're going to go in the right direction with him as well. And then I look at Austin Theory. Theory, I like the way they're booking him too. It's, sure, you could talk about his scripted promos and the way he kind of talked with Miz. I still think that guy has something there. And then maybe they think that he's the next Cena. I don't know. But there is something with Cena that Theory is good with, and he's a young kid. They can figure things out with him. I don't think he's that far off. Like his working ability, his wrestling ability is great. And his promos are not bad. I don't think he's falling flat. I don't want him to see so scripted either, but it's starting to work somewhat. I thought he did a good job out there with Pat McAfee for what they did. And, now that they had Vince out there with Austin Theory after he won the belt, Vince now takes a back seat, U.S. title here. And now you just keep Austin Theory out there and you have him in a spot. He gets his first defense. Now, what you do is you continue to bring him out there prominent. And that works. And then you bring Mustafa Ali back into the mix, something more prominent. Look, the guy is a great worker. Let's see if we can do something with him. Let's not quit. Let's stop pairing him with other things like, let's all forget about Retribution. Let's just completely throw that out the window. That went away with the Thunderdome. Okay, Mustafa Ali now gets to come back here. I almost feel like we're positioning him back before he got hurt at Elimination Chamber, and then Kofi got the chance to win and move along with the belt, and Kofi Mania began, right? That's where I feel like Mustafa Ali gets to come back at that point here. That's what I feel like he's at. So let him go ahead and work along with Finn Balor, and then right in that whole mix with the U.S. title. That's a good little mix to have as well. And then have the Miz involved in that as well, because Miz is just working with enhancement. He worked with Damian Priest. He's working now, alongside, and who knows if him in theory will continue to butt heads going forward. That might be fine too. And then I look at what they did with the breakup with Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. That little split worked, and I'll tell you what, the Rhea Ripley promo that we heard this week, where she finally talked about being stuck in with tag teams and how she's finally tired of it. Good. Let's break her back out and do something with her. I don't know what they're going to do with her, but she could use a little readjustment as well. She can't be, I don't think that this is my brutality, the NXT kind of feel of Rhea Ripley. We need to advance that story, that dimension of that character. Something more to her. I don't know what that is, but we need to do something more with her. And she's going to be back to a single star better off, because we need more opponents out there. For Bianca Belair, we always know that in the back pocket, they can always try to go ahead and lift up Rhea Ripley, because we know those two stars can work really well together, and they did great matches in NXT. So we can have that again. That's not a question there. And that's really what I look at right now on the Raw side. On the SmackDown side, they're going to bring back Lacey Evans in the right way. The military background, which they could have done from the get-go, from day one. Not the sassy Southern Belle, which was a horrible gimmick. She made it work for what it was worth, but this side of Lacey Evans, I'm looking forward to. This is good. Have I really thought much about the whole 24/7 thing? Well, they made it a storyline, right? We're not just getting just groups going around. Look, for me, Reggie, Dana Brooke, Tamina and Tozawa with R-Truth, that's been fine. I didn't care too much about the wedding thing. That was funny. I think R-Truth works well in that whole mix. That 24/7 thing, that's just filling up 5-10 minutes of time. That's filling up a segment. That's a segment filler. That's fine. I don't think we're crapping the bed with all this stuff. I think it's been okay. So there's that to work off of. But at least we're starting to see some of these storylines and some of the booking they're doing now. Look, they brought back Asuka now to go after Becky Lynch. You might not like the idea of these two working together again, but you know what? It was Becky Lynch that won the belt off of Asuka before Becky Lynch had to vacate the belt because she was pregnant. And that whole storyline that came from that. You could come back to that now. And Asuka could go ahead and have her come up on Becky Lynch. We could go back to that. I thought the story was Sonya Deville going after Bianca Belair. That match, that was pretty good too. I didn't have any problem with that either. And when you look at the build-up to WrestleMania Backlash coming up, it's not bad. Look, the matches they have, for the most part, they've only built up a couple of matches so far for the SmackDown side, but then the Raw side, we're still working on things. RK Bro, listen, Randy Orton and Riddle, I don't know how much farther you go, but I think what could happen is that the championship unification match, if the Usos were to take the belts away and unify, which is what I think is going to happen, this is where I think RK Bro breaks up. Because there's something really serious about that kind of a loss and that kind of a spectacle that would really hurt things. But, look, Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, to go back to that match again with some proper build. The repackaging of stars, I said that before. So Cody Rhodes is back once again as the American Nightmare. They held on to that gimmick, as is from AEW. Custom made, perfect. Seth Rollins, I think him, the visionary, the whole setup, Seth freaking Rollins and the suits and the bad dancing, it works. It works. The Ezekiel crap with Kevin Owens, I thought that's pretty good too. I mean, honestly, I don't even know if that's Elias or not. But either which way, I think that whole storyline with Ezekiel's kind of interesting. That's not bad. That's not bad either. It's better. It's fresh. It's different. Isn't that what we wanted? Weren't we tired of all the other storylines we had where, you know, you knew that Liv Morgan had no chance in hell going after Becky Lynch and going after the title, even though they put her in a match. But the storyline and the whole setup with the booking and all and the bad scripted promos wasn't helping much. Or seeing Rhea Ripley and Nikki ASH together as a tag team. Ugh. Or the teams that were lined up for Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. Do we want all that again? Do we want to go back to that? Do you want to go back to Damian Priest being Jekyll or Hyde? Or do you like this better? Right? Do you want to go back to Miz and Maurice going back up against Beth Phoenix and Edge? Do you want to go back to that? Okay. My point exactly. Could you go back and look at what they were doing back around day one? And we were complaining about what they were doing with that. Listen, the card came out pretty good, but we know we were all kind of upset with what they were doing in general of the storylines were being built up leading to it. This is prior to WrestleMania, remember. And in those matches you had Usos and New Day. And we saw those two groups, that we saw those two tag teams over and over and over and over and over again. Drew McIntyre, Madcap Moss. We've seen that a lot. And that's finally done. And actually, we moved somewhere forward because Madcap Moss is split off from Baron Corbin. Good. From Happy Corbin. Smart. We got tired of that storyline. And then RK Bro and Street Profits. Well, yeah, that's been around, but at least we still got Alpha Academy. And, you know, we've done a few more things where it's something a little bit different. And we had Edge and The Miz. And then remember, you know, sure, we don't have a WWE champion right now, but there's still enough storylines of some good size main event stars that are doing something right now. To me, even without titles over there, think about it like this. If Raw is still going to lose the Raw tag team titles and they still don't have a WWE champion on the Raw side to defend the belt, they're not hurting at all. They're actually working with storylines. Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins is a storyline of main event stars that doesn't need a belt to be booked. When you look at Bobby Lashley and Omos, that's a story that doesn't need a belt. But this company's always been reliant upon belts to do anything. They're actually taking their stars and putting them in featured feuds, and they're putting some time into it. And they're not just putting them in matches every single week. Some they're still doing that. They're still they have tag teams that are still kind of working piecemealing. Okay, this player with this player, and they dance together, and these partners dance together, and whatever. Sure, they do some of that still. If there's anything I feel like it is a little bit still, it's Charlotte Flair, Ronda Rousey, but they're working off of that. They're doing something with it. It's just that they have, Ronda Rousey is here. They're going to use it with somebody. They're going to put her up against Charlotte Flair for right now. That's what they plan to do. The Usos RK Bro storyline with no Roman Reigns defending the belt, that storyline is good. And they're putting it over both shows, which is nice. It works. And now we'll get Madcap Moss and Happy Corbin. That's a storyline that's been building as well. Okay. We're getting storylines. We're getting matches that have no belt whatsoever that actually feel like there's something is significant to them. Because I feel like there's more heat behind some of these storylines. It's not perfect, but it's way better than what was before. It doesn't feel as stale, and they actually are starting to work on some stars to build them up and become important. When you look at Theory, Omos, when you look at, Butch is not great, but they're trying something. And listen, you can complain about him being Pete Dunne, and the bruiserweight looks like, what is he now? He looks like a lightweight out there, along with Sheamus and Ridge Holland. But I think the Fight Night gimmick could work, believe it or not. You might not think that either, but I don't think that's a bad thing now. Judgment Day is a good gimmick for Damian Priest and Edge. I like that a lot. I like the whole throne thing. They're actually doing consistency on the storylines where they're doing promos and putting out there him and AJ Styles and putting that story out there. We haven't even got that match booked yet. But AJ Styles Edge under this new gamut, yeah, this is good. We don't know where Damian Priest is going to be in, or if Damian Priest and AJ Styles are going to end up being the match that's going to happen. I just feel like there's something more behind the storylines that we were not getting. It's not so watered down right now. They're putting some effort here because they know they're against the wall right now. They have to get things going right. They have no choice now. All I know is I've been watching Raw and SmackDown more closely than I have before in months. You know, it's just not complete throwaway to me. The matches are still going to be, some of them are going to be piecemeal. They're going to be put together. It's parody booking, a little bit of that. But, you know, you can see there's certain stars up and coming, the ones they want to push. They're not just beating them every time. That's not happening either. I just think there's a little more logical, a little more logic going on right now in the reasoning behind the booking. And it doesn't feel like it's just some kind of a routine that we've been going through as of late. They've been pulling some other tricks out, trying to do something. I don't know. There's just something that makes me feel like instinctually my intuition feels like we're going in a better direction now. And even with NXT 2.0, which is my second point, when I look at some of the stars they have, look, you might not agree with me or all, but there's just something to be said where they've definitely now unloaded all the talent they had. Like, look, Ciampa also moved away. He's now over dealing with Theory and Miz and Balor, and that whole section over there. That's now aside from everything else. So, yeah, the remnants of the old NXT are pretty much done. We also know that Night Model Management, we've heard about that. LA Knight now looking to go ahead and be a manager for a number of talent that's coming up soon as well. We're going to see that pretty soon. Just a matter of time, but it's already being worked in dark matches. Maybe we're going to see that pretty soon. That sounds kind of cool, too. More managers, more advocates, more mouthpieces for some of these stars. I like that a lot. When you have somebody that can't talk, like Omos, yes, put MVP in front of him. Great idea. You might not like Butch or Ridge Holland working along with Sheamus, but you know what? Sheamus can talk. He can cut promos. You might not like his promos, but he can cut them. I just feel like they're just doing some things that are better off. It's fresher than we had before. That's all I'm saying. With NXT, you know, they are working quite a bit on trying to build stars. And here's the thing. When NXT Black and Gold went away, it was under 600,000 viewers. Well, you know where it is right now? Around 600,000 viewers. 577,000 for this last week. And they're doing their feature shows, Spring Break and coming up next week. They're building. And so with the talent that don't even have to spend that much on this time, so all these performance centers folks that were just performance center folks 6 months ago. Remember, a lot of these people we're seeing right now on NXT 2.0, we only started seeing them in October. And all of a sudden, look at that. The same group of rad tags we never knew anything about 6 months ago. They're pulling the same numbers that the stars we've seen for, decades in Ring of Honor and other promotions and indie darlings, they're doing the same thing. The crowd is just as adamant as they once were. They're not even in Full Sail anymore. They're doing it for the Performance Center. So the whole idea of having this going on now, no more of the dealing with Full Sail anymore. Not like it wasn't a good program, but they're not doing it anymore. All their facilities done within. They're delivering the same amount of audience to USA Network that they did before with a different coat of paint and a different look. And there's some stars in here that I can definitely tell look like they're going to go ahead and do something. I mean, I don't know about Andre Chase or Duke Hudson or some of these other creator wrestler stars. Von Wagner with Mr. Stone. I like that. Joe Gacy with when I look at Harlan and how he looks right now alongside Joe Gacy, I mean, Joe Gacy, I don't know if he's going to be much of a wrestler that we're going to see for the most part, but Harlan looks pretty badass. They don't use him enough, but he's a good, nice mix in there. Nikita Lyons is getting over. You might not listen. They're going with tits and ass like they used to back in the day. Well, it's working. Tiffany Stratton, yeah, is a good-looking girl. So is Nikita Lyons. Cora Jade. They're giving us like that whole complement of like pretty girls, the kind of the divas thing. But they probably will be able to wrestle somewhat. It's working. Somehow they're making it work. Braun Breaker is a star in the making. It's just a matter of time before that guy moves up. Plus the old thing to do, and the only thing they did with NXT where they used to take certain stars and not just bring them in there in a permanent sense, like, you know, where Breezango came back to NXT to work there in a permanent sense, or Finn Balor came back in a permanent sense. No, we're getting Dolph Ziggler coming in for a while, and then we're seeing Natalya coming in for a while as well. That's all working. The show's not that bad. And they're definitely trying to do things to build more stars up, and they're trying to put some more names out there. Like, I can appreciate what they're doing. Spring Breaking next week. That doesn't look like a bad show. When I look what their card looks like, Braun Breaker and Joe Gacy for the NXT title. That looks pretty good. Cameron Grimes has been kept strong, but he's up there as the veteran, building up for Carmelo Hayes, who's trying to go after the North America title once again, and Solo Sikoa, which, you know, another Samoan in the ranks, another one in the ranks that's going to come along the same line as the Usos and Roman Reigns and all the others. Keep in mind, man, he's just not, you know, they're working them up. They're working their way up. Then you got Lash Legend now working with Natalya, and the whole deal with Cora Jade and Natalya trying to work that together. They got that match set up next week. The Creed brothers, it's a different thing. They put a female into the mix, try to add something a little bit different. They put the Viking Raiders up against them as an enhancement talent. That looks good. Then, you know, they got some other gimmicks that are like out there, pretty deadly with the tag team titles. Wesley, they're trying to with a different gimmick now because they doesn't have Nash Carter anymore. And Grayson Waller, they've definitely made a big deal out of with all that they've done with him when it comes to LA Knight, when it comes to, you know, whatever. They're working on it. They're doing something overall. So I give them credit with what they're trying to do. On WWE side, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, they're trying to do something to get things in a different direction. They are working on new generation stars. They are trying to build a new generation of stars. They have a bunch of them in the mix right now in NXT 2.0. Raw has quite a few of them, and SmackDown is really just the bulk of, like, you know, established stars with a little bit of newer people in the mix as well. So, I mean, look, and the ratings are not hurting as a result. Let's see if they go any lower, because if they go lower, then that's going to be an issue. But you know what? When we saw certain stars like Liv Morgan going after Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's title, and that didn't go anywhere, and you go back and look now where you're saying, okay, Big E was champion, and remember, we didn't see much coming off of that. When I look at their numbers right now, post-WrestleMania, I mean, the ratings are starting to go back and falter a little bit again when it comes to all their shows, which is going to be, that's going to happen. That's normal. But as long as they're not going to drop all the way down like they did before, where they were dropping below like 1.5, 1.6 million viewers, when they start going back to that level again, they can never go back to where they were February 7th when you had, you know, Raw and NXT suffering 1.4 million viewers if we're rounding up for Raw, and NXT at 400,000 viewers. But that was also the Olympics. It's like that was all getting moved around. That's one thing, but still, they can't have the thing where, you know, the audience is just faltering right now. So there's number 2. Number 3 in my top, my 5 undisputable facts wrestling fans can agree to disagree on right now. Where AEW is promotion building, they are star makers. MJF from day one, what an amazing run he's had right now. Now working with Wardlow, MJF is a pillar, building another pillar in one of the biggest big men we got now in Wardlow, and building him up. And every time there's a feud with MJF, it's such a special thing. The Pillars of Jericho to CM Punk and all the different demands that he had to put him through as well, to what he's doing right now with Wardlow, it's fantastic. I mean, MJF, and also he's just like in a kind of a backstage role because Wardlow is the focus here. So Wardlow's not even like the main focus right now, and they're building him up and putting some big stars in front of him. Listen, so they put him out there with the Butcher. They put him out there with Lance Archer. You know, the tease is already out there. MJF says, you know, and you can't teach that. That means W. Morrissey's coming in for a small run in AEW. He's coming in at least for one match. Impact Wrestling star W. Morrissey. There you go. And that's a nice little forbidden door we're getting from there, from Impact Wrestling. So I like that. That's pretty good. Jungle Boy, and now you're already starting to see a little bit of the rift between Christian and Jungle Boy. That's great. Wheeler Yuta now working with the Blackpool Combat Club, and look at the response he gets now. Wheeler Yuta, man, the last few weeks have been fantastic to him. His match with Jon Moxley, then winning the Ring of Honor Pure Championship over Josh Woods. The guy has had a stellar month and a half right now. Wheeler Yuta splitting off of Best Friends, and now into this whole role. And Wheeler Yuta's now on another level, automatically, just like that. Sammy now instant heel, big time heat right now with him and Ty Conti. Love it. I'm not sure what to think about Dan Lambert now being in the mix with Paige Van Zandt, Ethan Page, and Scorpio Sky. Like, it's just something there. Scorpio Sky's a face now. And he won the TNT title again tonight. A great match. Really good stuff. So they have a lot of good young stars in the mix. And you know what? Everybody wants to complain about, well, where's Andrade in the mix? Where's the House of Black and all these other stars? I get it, right? And some stars are not going to be out there every single week. Like tonight, we saw Penta, Phoenix, and Death Triangle and House of Black are finally back together. Everybody's healthy. We're going to get that match down the line, probably at Double or Nothing. Great. We got the Owen Hart tournament that's getting some stars put together in a mix as well. And then you're looking at, man, there's just so much more where Adam Page has been booked so well as champion, being put out there. Jade Cargill, I love her. She's getting, they're putting more into her, and they're at least trying, man. They're putting some real effort into what they're doing with her. I can appreciate that. And even with the younger stars that they have, some of the other ones they're working on, like, look, Chris Statlander's going through a full rehaul right now. She's been overhauled. The alien gimmick is gone. Now she's this other, like, brooding, dark figure, but I like it. And the whole Layla Hirsch thing became a storyline that made something important. Red Velvet's being pushed now as a heel. The baddies, I like that whole thing going on. Thunder Rosa is your as your women's world champion. Love that. The whole mix with Toni Storm mixing in with Ruby Soho now. And then you're going to see Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker now putting in the mix. The whole night tonight where they had Serena Deeb and Hikaru Shida. There's just a lot right there. There's a lot of veteran stars that are in the mix, definitely being involved. But then that they're also kind of getting involved in everything else. And even the whole idea where you have certain stars that are getting brought out with some of the other with some of the veterans that are out there as mouthpieces. When you think about Brock Anderson and Lee Johnson, and seeing Arn coming out to the ring, or Jake Roberts coming out for Murder Hawk Monster Lance Archer. We don't know where Tully Blanchard's going to be, but we know he's part of the new Tully Blanchard Enterprises of Ring of Honor. But we haven't seen him come back on anything yet where Brian Cage or all the other group is going to be involved. We'll see what happens down the line. Samoa Joe into the mix, but he's in a Ring of Honor sense. Like, Ring of Honor is going to take some of those veteran stars. They're going to go over there and work on that side. So just realize that some stars are going to probably be positioned for Ring of Honor down the line whenever that TV show comes into play, and that's what comes up next. I'm hoping for an announcement soon. Hopefully by the summer, we'll get an announcement that Ring of Honor is going to get a TV slot somewhere. If it's not on YouTube or Fight TV or somewhere, but Ring of Honor will finally get a weekly show. For as long as Ring of Honor now is under the guise, obviously this time where Honor Club can get fixed up, and you can do some more of what's going to go on with incorporating Ring of Honor storylines within AEW right now, just to keep that going in the meantime would be nice. Plus, I like the fact that Ring of Honor, they're still having those titles still being used. It's unfortunate Jonathan Gresham couldn't defend the title against Eddie Edwards. We still haven't gotten an explanation on that. But we'll talk about Impact in a minute. So there's that part too. Like Ring of Honor, I'm wondering if that's going to be the outlet that Tony Khan's going to allow other promotions to work together. So like Ring of Honor and Impact Wrestling, will that be the relationship that goes on? And AEW stands alone. That'd be nice. And then when you have these super shows where you want to put groups together where you might get stars from other promotions to work nice together in a super show, much like what Forbidden Door is going to be, maybe we're going to get that too. And maybe Ring of Honor is the home where that's going to happen down the line. Okay, back to my 5 indisputable facts wrestling fans can agree to disagree. Number 4, Impact is no longer a promotion to sleep on. Forget, like I said, right now you're looking at Josh Alexander now in an amazing story after Rebellion. Once again, 6 months later, after winning the belt, executing option C on the contract, and saying, okay, I'm going to go ahead and go after, I'm going to relinquish the X Division title. I want to go after the world title. He did it. I believe Ace Austin will do the same thing this year. But when I look at it, and I'm saying to myself, man, what a setup. Like Josh Alexander winning over Moose and getting that belt back like that. What a great move. What a great story. They really did a great job of building that up. The whole thing with his family and Moose being the setup. Like they really built that up towards the end to some real great crescendo. And the only thing we wanted to see happen, which could have been absolutely predictable in my sense, was Josh Alexander winning the belt over Moose and getting that belt back. Redemption story complete. I love it. Scott D'Amore, great job on that storyline. The Honor No More storyline, I like that too. It's unfortunate Eddie Edwards, like I said, did not get to go after Jonathan Gresham in that belt. I wish we could have had that. But, it is what it is. And now, my 5th fact. My 5th indisputable fact wrestling fans can agree to disagree on. And that is a Forbidden Door. It's going across the board. There are a number of stars that are crossing promotions that are making a big difference now. It's funny where Impact Wrestling is kind of really doing that kind of respect. Listen, when you got GCW having Matt Cardona as their champion, and then Impact Wrestling has Matt Cardona, and right now that guy's going to probably go out to the tag team titles at some point, along with, well, they already did for the titles at Rebellion, but we're obviously going to see them more into the mix soon enough. Him and Brian Myers, along with Chelsea Green. But then you also look at Matt Cardona, who's the current NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. And how that breeds across different areas. And now we have an NWA pay-per-view called Always Ready. It's great. What a setup for everything that's going on. It's such a great mix of everything. And remember, when you get stars that are working in other companies, and we're getting the crossover of the stars that are out there, I just wish MLW was in the mix a little bit more. But when you see Matt Cardona now working, and Mickie James working with the likes of the NWA stars, and coming into this now and seeing where, okay, you give Nick Aldis a great opponent where Matt Cardona could drop the belt coming up against, well, Matt Cardona could drop the belt to Nick Aldis, and Nick Aldis goes back and grits the belt again after a time. And even when Matt Cardona would go on a Busted Open and talk to Dave LaGreca or Bully Ray or whoever, Tommy Dreamer, and just would go ahead and bash off on Trevor Murdoch, and would just go on and talk about the fact of being the interest of being so passionate about the promotion. Like Matt Cardona gives me the kind of vibe that Cody kind of gave a little bit, but not to the extent where, Cody was going off and working other promotions and saying, okay, well, whatever. Like there's something to be said about like some of these stars, like a John Moxley working in GCW, and just seeing where we're seeing just this mix of the camaraderie of stars working together. And then look what New Japan's going to start doing now. When you look at Minoru Suzuki working multiple brands, which is fantastic. You see the Mexican stars also doing the same thing, where Laredo Kid will work over in Impact Wrestling, or he'll work over in MLW, and just things like that. I mean, it's wonderful. And then who knows what Ring of Honor is going to bring to the mix as well. When you look at certain stars they're going to have under their purview, where Bandito, or when Rush is back under, I don't know if he's still under contract or if that comes across for him later on. But like there's certain, the Mexican quotient has not been brought into play yet. But the Forbidden Door, does it have to be just Japan? Can we include Mexico? Because I think Mexico should be included in this. And we don't see that as of yet. When we see some stars in AAA working over in Impact Wrestling. But then more than anything, MLW is the one that's really trying to be cornering the market of Azteca Underground and having their stars. And look, now they don't have those parks. Because at the instant they had, what was it, in Charlotte? Not in Charlotte, in Philadelphia. I forget what happened there, but those parks is now they're personas non gratas. Non gratis, okay? They are not welcome anymore. And like they must have burned their bridges pretty bad. And that's the room for a lot of different people. And I would love to see the Von Erichs work in other promotions. I would love to see the Von Erichs work in other promotions as well. And Killer Cross now back in the mix. I'd like to see those guys make a work across. I'd love to see MLW and AEW and Impact Wrestling somehow get together on a super show. Like I want the Forbidden Door to not just be a concept for just New Japan and AEW with the Ring of Honor quotient. I'd like to see super shows at some point come together where we get a super clash, much like AWA tried to do a Wrestle Rock. Those kind of super shows that we had. The territories could come together and even more. I would like to see that happen someday if we can get to that part. If we can get to that point, it would be really great. Because I think that would be amazing. It can't just... And the thing is, too, is that... for some of the fans out there, you want to go and see Will Ospreay and Zack Sabre Jr. and some of these American stars work their way in, and Jay White we've seen a whole lot of right now. But remember, it's not that I want to see these New Japan stars just once in a while just work on these shows because it's an AEW show. I want to see these stars in general because of what they bring into all of it. It's not just the fact that I want to see Ring of Honor stars or AEW stars working with New Japan stars just for that run. No, I want to see it more often. I would love to see Tanahashi and Ishii and more working on a regular basis in here. Like when looking at Ishii working Impact Wrestling, working AEW, like that's fantastic. I love all that. And there's other stars that can be working through the New Japan or the Mexico ranks in the same vein. I want all these guys to be getting that international exposure and that flair. I know that the travel has to open up a little bit more, but we're getting there pretty soon. And this Forbidden Door should start creating the moment of like, okay, let's get more stars working together, combining and putting it all together like that. I'd love to see it. I mean, I don't know what Forbidden Door is going to give us. While sure, people want to see Kenny Omega go ahead and get into a match, I'm not worried about him right now. But if you want to give me Will Ospreay and Hiroshi Tanahashi, rock on, man. Let's get some New Japan matches in front of these audiences right now. Like, it doesn't have to be Wrestle Kingdom like it was. There's a lot of great stars we just want to be able to see. And see them out there and notice and get them recognized and have some fun. So, the G1 SuperCard concept, the start that Ring of Honor had, and then dropped, and that's partly Sinclair's fault. Whatever happened, that fizzled out. AEW took the role here, and Tony Khan has been the ambassador here to work this all out. And it's not even just AEW. He's working with other Japan promotions as well. Let Pro Wrestling Noah get into the mix. Much like how MLW is doing it, or All Japan, like MLW is doing it too. I don't want to just see the MLW just be the only one that goes to this. I mean, they got great stars. Don't get me wrong. To go and see them work in Puerto Rico, like the Richard Holidays or the Alexander Hammerstones, your boy Hammer, or seeing, a TJP or Alex Kane or Calvin Tankman. Like I like to see some of those stars cross over into other brands or see them work in the other overseas shows. But then not just within that group. Let's see where AAA brings in some other talent as well. Like, I mean, when you saw Andrade work over in AAA, when you see Pentoscuro going back and working AAA or something like that, like I want to see all that going on again. Let's get back to that because that's just fun times. I want to see where Wrestle Kingdom gets back to that again, where AEW and Ring of Honor stars make their way over, even Impact stars make their way over, and even those belts get defended in other countries and other territories. Let's bring that back. That makes everything special again. And then you get that whole global concept working out for you. That'd be awesome. And then it's the worldwide quotient that you have for all of wrestling. And then you create this whole global outlet for all these wrestling companies that are not WWE or NXT and build them up. For AEW, it is good for them to kind of just continue to work along. The Forbidden Door is just another part. But to create the pay-per-view and create the SuperCard again and make it a regular thing, fantastic. And other promotions to look at the same thing. That other promotions should be working together and there should be talent exchanges again. And those relationships should start once again. And I hope it does for the good of wrestling. Because if the WWE gets their shit together, like I believe they are, if NXT does churn out some good stars, the Next in Line program churns out some good stars, if AEW continues to build off these young stars they have right now, hey, if some of the free agents go ahead and go by the wayside, that's going to happen. But you know what? They have their stars. They're building stars. This is not WCW. They're building their own young stars. They got lots of young stars. Plenty of them. That's what's happening now. And the thing is, they're ahead of the game than what NXT 2.0 is going to be. Because they've worked those big crowds. It's just a matter of time before Tony Khan's concept with Ring of Honor and AEW are complete. And then who knows what happens when the broadcast deal comes back up and AEW might get some more money or might get Ring of Honor its own TV slot. That could be considered as well with Warner Brothers and Media and Discovery. Who knows? I mean, Warner Brothers and Discovery already talked about they're getting rid of scripted programming. They're going to start cutting down on it. They're starting to cut shows. But it's the reality type, it's the real-time reality-based programming. That's what they want. And wrestling fits into that gamut. So the money that can be taken away from other shows right now, like Snowpiercer or whatever else, they're going to put it towards these new shows. The Last OG or, Claws or whatever there is. They're going to move and take that money and inject it towards other programming that's live. They could very well do that. So AEW might benefit from this. And Ring of Honor might benefit from this. And that only makes wrestling better. So there's not that much to complain about. I don't think so. I'm a happy king of podcasts. And, 9.5 years going into this program, I'm happy where things are going right now with wrestling. And I'm going to keep this positive attitude. Now, for those of you that have listened to this whole diatribe of mine, I want you to agree to disagree. I want you to give your comments. So if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening to the podcast, remember, you want to follow me on social media. Wrestling. At King of Podcasts is where you find me everywhere. At King of Podcasts. Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram. I'm all on there. Send your messages there. Or email me, kingofpodcasts@yahoo.com. Email doesn't change. Or go on the YouTube feed. Drop a comment on the video. Let me know what you think. I want to hear from you. Please let me know what your comments are. And honestly, I'd like to go and get some feedback to bring up on the show next week. So I encourage you highly, send me some feedback if you like, and let's talk about it. I'd love to go and be able to do that pretty soon. That's going to do it with the program. Thanks for listening in. And coming up down the line, we got some great events coming up. When you think about it, at the moment, we got great events coming up pretty soon. So WrestleMania Backlash is in 2 weeks. That'll be good. And there's other things going on. We haven't even looked at what NWA's... So NWA Always Ready. That pay-per-view is going to be set in June. We got that coming up. And then we'll have Slammiversary the following week, I believe. Oh, no, Slammiversary is in July, right? But yeah, that's one thing I want to make mention of. Macrina will have the pay-per-view that we in Knoxville Convention Center, Knoxville, Tennessee. Always Ready, named after Cardona, held in his honor. That looks good stuff. Anyway, we'll leave it there. Come back for another Wrestling is Real podcast because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at WrestlingIsReal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube. or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.